Hello, making a podcast here to report on the performance assessment I did with my students last week. I wanted to get the students engaged in discussing what they're learning in class, and I wanted to assess them on their performance in that discussion. It's the whole idea. I believe that when students speak it, or anybody speaks anything for that matter, they learn it. And that's what I wanted to do in my class, or provide that opportunity for students to do that in my class. This is right in line with my essential teaching goals from the inventory, where I wanted to help students learn facts and terms about the subject. I chose to do this with my AP Environmental Science students. They're very strong academically and have a lot of experience in the discussion model or method in other classes, but not in science. So I wanted to incorporate that into science. These students are involved at Luella High School. The school is in Locust Grove, Georgia. Uh, the demographic breakdown is we are 67% African American, 13% white, 11% Hispanic, 5% one or more race, and 4% Asian. Also, we serve 48% economically disadvantaged, and 3% English learners, and 13% students with disabilities. The class right now is currently studying a unit on population and community ecology, and they've been preparing for this discussion or performance assessment. Here's a list of vocabulary words, and they were asked to make a note card for each one. And on that note card, we asked for a definition and a connection to some greater concept that's discussed in class and in the textbook. I provided the students, when this was assigned, an example of what a good note card should be about, and really looking at those connections to broader concepts. The students got a handout, which you'll see at the end of the presentation, and they were to bring all these note cards to the class at the day of the discussion. I've randomly selected 7 students to participate in the discussion, and then only selected 5 terms to discuss for 5 minutes. And so the classroom was rearranged to facilitate this discussion, and we used the online timer to keep track of time. When it came to scoring how the students were performing in the discussion, I used this Harkness discussion tracker, and the level 4 has much higher order thinking and discussing and communicating skills, and then levels 3 all the way down. And I recorded or tallied each student comment and to what level it matched. And I also looked at the number of comments per student, and that is how we broke it down. And afterwards, there was I conducted an interview with 4 volunteer students. And to the data, we have 57% of the students made level 3 contributions. This was the highest level contribution, and no level 4s. This was out of 14 students, so an N of 14. Most of these were comments that were based on specific facts. However, there was one student that asked a great question. In terms of the S-shaped growth curve, how can we connect this to the video we watched about the fig tree? This was one of the good, powerful moments in the discussion that really got students thinking. And another student said, I learned a lot more than just doing this alone, because when I was asked questions, I was able to think back to a past lesson. And another big data point was 100% of students said yes to discussion. And that's just my interview with an N of 4. And 79% of students contribute at a level of 2.5. And most of these were just repeating information or simply reading a definition. One student said, I agree with the mosquito example. I can definitely see how the population curve increases because it's getting bigger exponentially. And 21% of the students added level 1.5 comments to the discussion. So this was on the poor end. One student said that the predation was when species, or predation is when species interact with each other. So real lack of probably preparation there. Also, 21% of the students made only one comment. So 79% made 2 or more, which is good. And 50% of the students interviewed felt very confident. That was an N of 4 there. So closing the loop. Interestingly, there was an incorrect discussion point, and after the discussion, there was further discussion outside. And so immediately they asked, and they could clarify their understanding. And so the issue was about growth model, logistical growth model, and what kind of species would be an example of that. And students said mosquitoes, and then they were asked about it. And so we were able to clarify. Another student asked about that, and they were able to clarify there at the end. So that was really cool because we were able to learn outside of the discussion, and it kind of facilitated that. I did this assessment right before break, so I wasn't able to explicitly close the loop, but I'll share this data with them, the percentages, and then just encourage and definitely talk about this connection the student made to the fig tree and get them to level up. And so all the 3s can get up to 4s, and we can just get better and better as we do this. And the assessment went exactly as planned, even exceeded my expectations, a lot better. In the future, I could use this for a more open-ended discussion, not terms, but I could use this as, say, what if you could predict what the human population growth will look like in the next century, and you could really have them research and do a really good discussion in that way. Through the interview, I got a lot of good feedback, reward more points for interterm connections, more time, smaller group, more topics. So those are all things I could do, but it definitely will impact my teaching as I move more towards student-centered. When during the discussion, I was completely didn't say a word, and it was all student-led, which was fantastic. Here's a picture of the handout I used. I can get you a copy of that if you like. It's missing the Harkness scale, but that was definitely included on here. So the students had an idea of what to do. And here's my image references for the podcast PowerPoint presentation. Hope you enjoyed and have a good one.